overall, the deal itself, it's not going to change much. I mean, I guess it's good for everybody's stock for 401ks. Now, this is all presumes if it passes.
Right.
Because that is actually kind of up in the air right now. I mean, Krystal, we haven't yet received word from the Progressive Caucus to whether they're going to vote for it or not. If they do, this deal might almost get 100% Democratic support or somewhere near that. And then you don't actually even need that many Republicans to support it. Although McCarthy has said, I will not bring the bill to the floor without a majority of the support. Although that's only 100 or so members out of the two. I forget the exact number of there. It's really not that many people when you consider how many defections he could have, which would then be a huge internal blow to him for his speakership.
That's right. So the reason that he is going to commit to and has already committed to, we have to have a majority of the Republican caucus behind this, is because his ass would be on the line. And you'll recall, as part of the deal that he brokered in order to become speaker, he made it a lot easier for them to toss him out as Speaker of the House. So that's in the back of his mind. And you already have a lot of House Freedom Caucus members who are, they're not being subtle about this. I mean, they hate this deal. They're railing against it on Twitter. You can bet there's going to be a lot of conservative media that is very against the deal. There's a lot of incentive to posture as being against this deal in terms of support from the grassroots base. So he's in a bit of a tricky position. And I'm not sure that he made things easier for himself by saying some relatively nice things about Joe Biden. We may appreciate that level of civility.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of people within his caucus who will not appreciate that level of civility. Let's take a listen to a little bit of what Speaker McCarthy had to say.
The president said he wouldn't negotiate with us for 97 days. He wouldn't even allow us to talk. After we passed the bill, we were able to get in. But it wasn't until the final 2 weeks that would we really be able to sit down and communicate with one another. I do want to thank the president's team that he put together. Very professional, very smart. Very strong beliefs that are different than ours. And I think at the end of the day, people can look together to be able to pass this in the House and the Senate together.
So very professional, very smart is what McCarthy had to say about the Biden team. Let's go ahead and put up the next piece, though, of some of the House Freedom Caucus reaction, which is a little bit different tone from what we're hearing from House Speaker McCarthy there. This is just these are some of the sort of selected key players and the way they're reacting to it. You've got Ralph Norman saying this, quote, deal is insanity. A $4 trillion debt ceiling increase with virtually no cuts is not what we agreed to, not going to vote to bankrupt our country. The American people deserve better. You've got Congressman Bob Good saying, I'm hearing the, quote, deal, they all put deal in quotations marks for some reason, is for a $4 trillion increase in the debt limit. If that is true, I don't need to hear anything else. No one claiming to be conservative could justify a yes vote. You've got Chip Roy. I do not like the, quote, deal as I understand it from the cheerleading so far. I will have more to follow once I see more details. You've got Dan Bishop. Of the $80 billion Democrats appropriated to the IRS over 10 years, the, quote, deal rescinds $1.9 billion. You read that right. That's the kind of get that's so good McCarthy agreed to increase the debt ceiling $4 trillion. I saw Lauren Boebert. There were others who were also being highly critical. And Saagar, Chip Roy is a key player here because, some of this is so arcane, but one of the parts of the deal that McCarthy also made to secure his speakership was stacking the Rules Committee with some of these hardline House Freedom Caucus members, Chip Roy being one of them. This thing has to get through that committee in order for it even to get to the floor for a vote. It's looking right now like the swing vote on that. So it's 6 Republicans, 4 Democrats on there. Usually in recent political history, the opposing party on this committee never votes for whatever the party in power wants, never. That just doesn't happen. So the 4 Democrats are assumed to be a no, although they could, in theory, cross over and vote for the thing. You've already got a number of Republicans who are on the committee who are on the record saying, no, I'm not voting for it. And so Thomas Massie, who's this sort of quirky libertarian type out of Kentucky, may end up being the swing vote. Now, ideologically, on spending at least, he tends to be more aligned with the House Freedom Caucus, but he also has been turned into somewhat of an ally of McCarthy. He was with him from the beginning in terms of the speakership. So there's a lot of dicey dynamics at play here still. I think the problems are more on the Republican side. We've heard a lot more vocal opposition to the deal on the Republican side than on the Democratic side, but I guess you never know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, in terms of whether it will pass or not, I genuinely have no idea. As people have pointed out, the Rules Committee, it's very possible, given the gravity of the circumstances on the debt ceiling, that the Dems might actually vote, and then you wouldn't even need many of the Republican votes.
Right.
You could have some defections. The other question is also, even if it does get through the House, we're up against a deadline of June 5th, and it's going to take a couple of days. We're not going to have a vote here on this thing until Wednesday. Then it's going to immediately make its way over to the Senate. Now, people should remember that the easiest way to get something through the Senate is something called unanimous consent, where they waive the 30 hours of debate rule on the floor. Senator Mike Lee, who is also a libertarian, has come out and said that he wants to do everything possible, if he doesn't like the deal, to slow it down on the floor. So all you need is a single senator, or Rand Paul, for that matter, to object to that, and then you're immediately triggering that debate and the amendment process, et cetera, and who knows how much longer that could take. So we could even be up against a technical default, even if it does get through both of those chambers. That said, Senator McConnell came out with a statement last night and said, I support the bill, let's immediately pass this thing. So I don't think it will meaningfully have any problems, but there will be some fun intra-game chamber games about committees and objections and all of this stuff as to how exactly it makes its way through. But I do think the biggest thing that's up in the air right now is, will there be a GOP revolt? Another question is, what about Trump? Trump is not an idiot. He's going to be reading Lauren Boebert's tweets. He's going to be reading all of these. He's said before that Republicans shouldn't give in unless they get every single thing that they want. There's no world where McCarthy could spin this as, this is everything that I got. His talking points, which you have in front of you, are the stupidest things you can imagine.
This is, okay,
Yeah.
So Sahil Kapoor got his hand on the GOP talking points that they're using to sell to their own members. Put this up on the screen. First of all, they're calling it the Fiscal Responsibility Act. A little bit of branding there. It says, Republicans will restore fiscal sanity and hold Washington accountable. Number one, stop out of control inflationary spending. Now, they mentioned cut spending year over year, including a rollback of non-defense discretionary spending, because God forbid we cut the Pentagon, to 2022 levels, fully fund VA medical, limit top-line federal spending to 1% annual growth for the next 6 years. Now, that's not actually even accurate, because the deal is only for 2 years. But there's like a theoretical, maybe we'll do it for a while longer after this, but none of that is binding. So even the 6-year part of this, which is what the Republicans wanted and not what the Democrats wanted, is really spin and propaganda. Number two, lift more Americans out of poverty. That's about the work requirements on SNAP and on welfare. Claw back tens of billions in unspent COVID funds. Okay, fine. Nobody really objected to that all that much. Rein in executive overreach. Enact into law the first ever statutory administrative pay-go to hold President Biden accountable for the full cost of executive rules and regulations. Cut red tape and streamline energy and infrastructure projects. That's that permitting reform, which we still don't have a lot of details on. Slash funding for Biden's new IRS agents. It's a relatively modest cut there. Restart student loan repayments. Well, they were planning to restart them anyway. Make Congress work again. Compel a functioning appropriations process by imposing a temporary 99% CR level cap until all 12 appropriations bills are enacted, so requiring all 12 to go through the House. Protect our seniors, veterans, and Americans' national security. That's the hike to the Pentagon budget. And block Biden and congressional Democrats' demands for new taxes. That was where they were like, no, we don't want to close the carried interest loophole or, tax corporations or the wealthy any more than we already do. So they're claiming that as a win. I don't know that I would claim that as a win, especially because obviously that goes against their aims of reducing the deficit and the debt. So that's the way they're selling it. And I mean, it's pretty weak tea in terms of what the demands of the House Freedom Caucus were.
Look, on any objective metric, and the Democrats are silently saying this, we won. The House Republicans completely folded. I think ultimately what happened here is that it came down to the wire because the Democrats, the White House, and all of them did have a decent amount of leverage as well. They were saying, no, we're not going to fold on this. We're not going to fold on this. And the business community, as you and I know, has been freaking out behind the scenes. And I bet, we're willing to bet.
And McCarthy's close with them.
Exactly. And look, he is raising money from all these billionaires. And if you don't think Jamie Dimon and all these other folks don't have his cell phone, they're like, you need to get this done. You need to get your people in line. line, and then it just came a question of, well, who's the smallest minority here? It's the Freedom Caucus. And if you have enough Democrats who are willing to go along and pass a bill, if he can have defections of 30, 40, even 50 votes, get this thing through, he will be a hero to the business community for all time for getting this through.
Yeah.
Which, for a lot of these guys, that's what they want, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, he secures his post-congressional, career opportunities, working as a lobbyist for these people, or on serving on boards or whatever, cashing in whatever way that he wants to, similar to what Paul Ryan did after he left the House as well. I do think the Trump factor kind of looms over this. Does he say anything? Does he weigh in? I think if he weighs in, he will weigh in against the deal, don't you? It's very likely, because that's where the energy on the base is going to be. That's where the energy in conservative media is going to be. And so the question is just, you don't have a lot of Republicans who are in those districts that are truly swing districts, that Joe Biden maybe even won, or at least that were really close, that are particularly worried about their general election prospects coming up in 2024. The overwhelming majority of the GOP caucus, they're going to be looking to their right, worried about, is this going to sink my chances in a primary? Is this going to become some sort of litmus test that is used in some sort of Tea Party-esque fashion to kick me out through the GOP primary process? If they start to feel like there's a lot of momentum and there's a lot of anger against the deal, and conservative media is all unified, and of course the Lauren Boeberts and those folks are going to be incredibly vocal about their opposition to this deal, that's when you could see things start to crumble. And then you're left with things like, you could still theoretically have a discharge petition where all the Democrats vote for something, and you get those 5, 10, however many actually more moderate Republican members that represent these swing districts to join with them. So even if it all fell apart, it doesn't necessarily mean the thing is dead in the water, but that also takes a lot of time. So it's looking like they're between the likely strong support from the Democratic caucus and some support from the GOP caucus, it's looking like they're going to be able to push this thing through, but there are still a lot of roadblocks and, a lot of possibilities that it could come apart in the next couple days.
Keep everybody updated on what the updates and all that will be. Remember about the 72-hour period where they do have 72 hours now to actually review and to read it. So watch the Twitter feeds of some of the Freedom Caucus members. One of them is Dan Bishop, I think. He likes to live tweet what he finds in the bills. It actually can be quite informative. Yeah, so I recommend his Twitter feed. I will be checking it out as well.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.